How's everyone doing? Finally, I have time to record once again. I even have new inspirations, new ideas to talk about. I think usually when I do talk on the camera, it's because I have enough thoughts in my head that bubble enough until they are ready to come out in the form of articulated speech. And so today's conversation is on romance, as it's probably one of the more fun topics out there. But I need to give you guys some context as to how things have led up. So it's no surprise, I did share about this before, that I've been through a few betrayals where I thought I could trust a person and yet this person abandoned me, and this happened twice across a span of many years. Same person twice, and that's kind of frustrating, but it's not exactly unique. So even in 2024, right, earlier on, there was another friend who replaced me with someone else, and that was kind of frustrating. Now, of course, there is one subtle problem with whatever I'm saying, and that is because these friends are female. And I do think there is something a little bit, there is a pattern that happens, right, obviously. And you could run down the list of potential cures or the potential reasons why I might feel a certain way, but I don't think any of them are particularly satisfactory, I have to say. Whoops, oh, this tripod's kind of weird, not gonna lie. I mean, I've kind of got a new device to help me out here. Now, it's a little noisy, as you can tell. There's public transport happening everywhere, but it's all good. But let's talk about some of the mechanics of what's going on. I do not know. The camera angle is kind of strange, not gonna lie. But in any case, let's talk about some of the mechanics. So, I'm not gonna go into the details of the individuals. I think they deserve their own privacy. Yes, I could be pretty evil and cruel, but I don't think I should, right? I don't think I should dox them. I don't think I should reveal their identities. I do think that as much as they have hurt me and they deserve punishment of some form, or accountability, let's say, that's a more politically correct word, I don't think I want to expose them on this channel. I don't think it's right, I don't think it's good, I don't think it's uplifting, I don't think it's godly, and I think there are better ways to go about it. And I think what's more helpful is for me to just talk about some of the lessons I've learned. And I think something interesting happened yesterday. So, whoa, the cameras. I do not know how the camera works. Let me see if I can fix this. Let's see if it can help to. Okay, I guess that might help. So, what's going on here? Now, I think what's interesting is, of course, the nature of these friendships, and something that caught my attention was that yesterday, right? So yesterday I was marking exam scripts, just usual teacher duties. And I think as I was marking these scripts, somehow I got some thoughts that just popped into my head that suddenly made sense of a lot of things. And I think this thought is the key thought that sort of impacted me. Now, some people might think that the issue is about having emotional attachment. And while I can understand how people came to that conclusion, because of the correlations, I don't think that's precise enough, because it is important to have healthy emotional attachment with friends of both genders in various ways, in appropriate amounts. Of course, you probably only want to reserve the maximum emotional attachment to your spouse, but emotional attachment in and of itself is fundamental for any form of friendship. And so that has to rule out, and people might argue, therefore it's an issue of nuance, it's an issue of degrees. And again, while that could be true, I suspect there's a different factor at play here, right? So what is this different factor? Well, I think what's interesting, and this is not just unique to these two friends, but in fact many friendships I've had, many forms of conflict also that I've experienced, also follow more or less the same playbook. And that's interesting, because I think this is really helpful, because it lets you know what to look out for, even lets you know why, at least for my case, why I've not found a life partner. But it could apply to you as well. I mean, it might apply to you. So, I mean, you are watching this channel, so why not? Okay, let me first cross the road. So, what's this insight that came to me while I was marking my work yesterday while I was marking my scripts yesterday. I think one of the key insights is the fact that in both of these friendship betrayals, what led up to it was that feeling, was the communication from them, intentional or not, that I was special in their lives. Now that is really interesting because that explains not just the conflicts that I've had, that even explains every other moment where I felt emotionally unavailable or hurt, etc., etc. And let me explain what I mean by that. So, I have to say that my growing years were fine, all things considered. Not perfect, but fine. But I've always had this feeling that I never really belonged in common society. My parents tried to teach me good emotional intelligence without actually explaining the logic. People generally do not explain the logic of emotional intelligence. Therefore, it made no sense to me, and therefore I did not bother following it. Because why bother, right? Why follow something that doesn't make any logical sense? And I never really felt special as an individual. So what happened with these two individuals is that in various ways they caused me to feel special about myself. Right? One of them was saying, hey, you know what, this is, something that, you're one of the first few people I've told this deeply vulnerable aspect of my life to. That's one of these kinds of components. And maybe another person would say, hey, let's spend time, you're one of the few male friends, or in fact, you are the only male friend who would blah 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 whatever. Now what's interesting about these comments is that these were not unique to these individuals. I've actually had moments where I received these comments from other women. And when that happens, subconsciously, there is this almost semi-permanent attraction. Okay, a semi-permanent attraction to these individuals of various kinds, right? And what happens there is that there is this special treatment. You receive the special treatment, and then they no longer give you that special treatment, and that's in those moments. Those are the moments I felt betrayed. Now, you could say that there's no reason why they should, but there's no reason why they shouldn't either, right? I mean, if this is the new status quo, if I am really that special in their life, then I think to pull away from that is still a betrayal of trust. Now, you might disagree with that, but I think you would feel the same thing. If someone were to treat you with that kind of special treatment and then pulled it away, I think you would feel abandoned as well. I think you would feel a sense of betrayed trust and whatnot. I don't think that's unique to you. I think that's something that is a very universal human experience. And that's something I certainly experienced. I thought I was alone in this. Then I realized, wait a minute, this feeling of feeling special and then being pulled away, that's such a big feeling that everyone feels at some point in time of their lives. Now, why is that such a big deal? It's because the feeling of feeling special is very much the feeling that's unique in a very real sense. It's unique to family life and romance. If you think about it, what separates a romantic friend from a platonic friend? The romantic friend is special. And what happens there is that you see them as special and they see you as special. The cameras, I don't know what the camera is doing, not gonna lie. But in any case, there is this mutual feelings of specialness. With a platonic friend, even a really close platonic friend, you don't feel that level of specialness. I guess maybe the more technical word is exclusivity, right? You don't feel that, right? There isn't a requirement of exclusivity, unlike when it comes to romantic friends. Ideally just one. Yeah, and I guess that's also why exclusivity in a romantic relationship is such a big deal, because there is this primal need to feel special. In fact, that is pretty much the feeling I've been feeling all over my entire life, at least all the past 29 years. Well, coming to 29, I'm turning 29 soon. And that's such an insight because that explains all of my behavioral tendencies. Recently, right, we had this open house at Temasek Poly, it was great and everything, and I felt like a superstar. Everyone knew me, and everyone felt happy interacting with me. And I felt like the popular kid once again. And it matters such a big deal because when I look back at my life, at all of the highlights of my life, it all boiled down to the fact that I was treated as someone popular. I finally had special treatment. I was finally seen as special. In those moments, I felt the happiest. And in the moments when I was not treated as special, well, I just felt like a face in the crowd, an NPC if you would. It's also the same moments when I felt very upset. And I wouldn't say that's necessarily a bad thing. I think, there's this idea, Gen Zs are all special snowflakes and whatnot. I do think it doesn't make logistic sense for everyone to treat you like a special snowflake. I think that's true. But it doesn't negate that need or that feeling of wanting to feel special. And that's where, I guess, romance comes in as a role to step in, to fill in that gap. Right? Romance is designed by God to fill that gap of being special. From a human point of view, tangible, someone who is going to walk with you in the struggles of life every single day. I do think that it meets that psychological need, even though a lot of our physical needs are kind of met, and there's no, or it is in a developed and relatively wealthy environment, there is not much need or incentive for romance. But I do think at the physiological and the psychological level, it's very much still an important aspect of life. Now, so once you have all of that, then it suddenly got me thinking, right? It actually explains all of my behavioral tendencies. It explains why I couldn't really find love. And let me explain why. By and large, people know how to interact in social settings. We call them social norms. I despise social norms. I act against social norms. But what's really crucial with all of that is that I've been consistent in the way I interact with anyone. If you interacted with me today and you see me interact with someone else, you will notice that my actions may be different, but the vibe I'm giving off, the feeling, the intention I'm giving off is exactly the same. There is no difference. And therefore, if you think about it, romance is an expression of uniqueness, an expression of an exclusive attraction. I like you in a unique way from other people. And once you have that feature, well, that's when, two people feel that they are being seen specially in a group of other people. Like, I'm interacting with a group of people, and this person whom I'm interested in, if I can communicate to her that she's special to me, and vice versa, if she communicates to me that I'm special to her, then sparks would fly. Sparks would fly. I think that's a very powerful way to think about it. And I think that's true. I think that's completely true. Now, once you have that feature, right, then you can start a relationship and you can try to work things out, etc., etc. This is why having multiple partners is a very dangerous, self-sabotaging approach. Even though it sounds like it's going to increase your chances, it's actually kind of even more damaging, because having multiple partners undermines the very value differential for romance. I think that's really powerful to consider. I think that's a really, really interesting way to think about it. That's why having multiple sexual partners is also kind of unfortunate in various ways. So I think that's an interesting thought to have. But that also raises the question of why I have failed to find love. And I mean romantic love. By and large, I tend to treat everyone in the same way. If you interact with me, and if anyone were to interact with me, they would get basically the same treatment. Depending on how much information they share about themselves, I would reciprocate accordingly. But the vibe I'm giving off is that I'm going to treat you exactly the same as how I'm going to treat everyone else. I've given equal treatment, more or less, to everyone. The fact that I can even talk about my heartfelt reflections and thoughts, that already communicates to you as to what extent I'm willing to treat everyone equally. And because I do that, no person whom I ever felt for have seen me give them special treatment. I think that's powerful. I mean, I think that's like, whoa, mind-blowing. That is the case, right? That is, if the person I'm interested in has no clue that I'm treating them specially, how are they supposed to know that I actually have feelings for them? Like, they actually can't, right? That's mind-blowing, right? And therefore, weirdly enough, I think for me, the action plan I have going forward, strangely enough, is to learn social norms, learn to act according to social norms truthfully. My issue with social norms is that it's built on a castle of lies. Everyone is a chronic liar who does not mean what they say at all. Okay, that is social norms in a nutshell. At least that's my conviction, and perhaps that's extreme, and it does capture one big problem with social norms. It's of course a consequence of human sin and whatnot, but the consequence I've experienced from that is that, well, people don't feel comfortable with me, or they see me treat everyone in this eccentric manner, but not in a unique way. And no one really feels special when interacting with me, and therefore, how are they supposed to feel that attracted to me, right? We are attracted to people who treat us specially. I think that's true, right? So that's weird. But that also explains why romance doesn't really fit any of your models of success. You try to build a framework for romance, which is kind of paradoxically what I'm doing, and it doesn't work because I do have one model that explains the unexplainability of all other models. And that model boils down to the fact that romance is about helping the other person feel special. Romance is about helping the other person feel special. And what does that mean? It means breaking any form of social norm. Does that make sense? Like, if you abide by social norms in group settings, but with this individual you get to know them on a deeper level in a unique way, you are kind of communicating to them that they are special to you. Therefore, ergo, you communicate to them that you have feelings for them, or at least to some degree. And that's kind of the communication breakdown as well, because if you know someone for who they are and yet do not have feelings for them, it kind of goes against the entire psychology, let's say, or the entire mentality of, or the entire enterprise, let's say, of romance in the first place. I think that's interesting to know. So perhaps that's how I might find a wife, right? Actually learning how to interact with social norms in a truthful way, because again, that's my issue with social norms. I think everyone's just lying, but perhaps there's a better way to think about it. And then communicating to the person I have feelings for that I'm gonna give them special treatment. I think that is a very clear way to indicate that you have feelings for such a person. I think that's true. But there's something even more interesting with all of this, which is theology. Yes, I have to bring in theology in my conversations. But perhaps we'll do that in the next recording.